Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of our Stars and Stripes and Maple Syrup. We're on episode 40 something, I think we are at the moment. Before we get started, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe button. If you're listening on Spotify, just keep listening. Justin, we're talking to you. Keep running, dude. Today we have Michael Krogh with us. Michael is from Bloomfield Hills, Michigan. Michael, thank you very much for joining us.
Happy to be here.
Now, I see that's not a Sunderland hat. Obviously, you've got a Villanova hat on today. Are Villanova still in Final Four? Is there anything specific, or is it just cold in Michigan today?
It's a little chilly, but my daughters have a friend over, and we have a cat. So I figured instead of trying to go in the basement or bedroom, I just go out in the sunroom. So it's like 50 degrees, 45 degrees out.
And I will say we are recording this at 8 a.m. the morning after the match. So yeah, I can imagine Michigan in March or April technically at 8 a.m. in the morning is going to be pretty bloody cold. So before we get into the game, yesterday was a great game for us yesterday. Tell us how somebody from the middle of Michigan ends up being a Sunderland fan.
It was fun to win till I died. It was I've always enjoyed soccer, loved the World Cups, but I could never
use
get
the S word on the podcast.
I'm sorry. I always
Use
enjoyed
the S word.
association football, and but I couldn't find an MLS team to follow. It just felt fake. And so I saw Sunderland until I die, and I was like, God, this is a club that I can get behind. I never wanted to be a City fan or a Liverpool fan. I just thought that seemed like being a Yankees fan. It just felt cheap.
Who wants to win shit, huh?
Yeah, it's I see. Yeah, I grew up in South Dakota, huge Vikings and Twins fan, and I never respected the Yankees or the Cowboys fans where I was from because I was like, oh, it just felt lame. So I saw that documentary and I like the sport. So I said, this is a team for me.
In my defense, I will say that I am a huge Yankees fan, but I moved to New Jersey just after 9/11, and my wedding night, my first wedding night, was on Game 3 of the World Series, and half of the guests at my wedding were in the other side of the bar watching the World Series. So I kind of got hooked that night.
Well, that makes sense. You came across it honestly. You weren't from Middle America and just followed the winner. So
No, and I like to. You mentioned the Cowboys as well as a Giants fan. I like to mock my son-in-law, who's a Cowboys fan, but he's from Oklahoma. It's kind of his local NFL team, so I can't really do too much. But okay, well, welcome to Sunderland. I'm sorry that you caught us at such a shitty time. Um, but I guess as a Minnesota Vikings fan, you're used to more not good seasons than good seasons.
It's true.
So let's kick off with the Burnley game. Give me your thoughts.
Well, so I'm frugal, so I try to get what I want and what I need at the cheapest possible. So I don't watch a lot of them. I listen to all of them, and so I fall in love with Benno and Barnsley. And so I was listening to it last night while working out, and I thought it was a really well played match. I think that team has scored 70 something goals, and so without Ballard and to keep them goalless, I think that's a win right there to stop that attack. And I rewatched the first half this morning on ESPN Plus, and they had their chances. They were moving that ball fluidly, and I was really proud of the boys that they did well.
All right, so again, your phone's cutting in and out a little bit. So for those who didn't quite catch, he's cheap. He listened to the game last night, was watching it this morning before he jumped on. Really proud of the team. Yeah, look, I thought it was I think probably our best performance all season, considering we've had games where we've played more attractive football and scored more goals, but I think there wasn't a fan realistically who thought we were going to get anything out of the game going into it. Obviously, we'd added Ballard to the injury list. Ahmad didn't start because he just got back the night before. Micheal and Patterson had got back late from under 20s and under 21s duty. And so, I mean, when you look at the fact that who did we start? We started the young Chelsea, the West Ham / Chelsea kid.
Equa.
So yes, I mean, when we're starting Equa, and Pritchard these days, I mean, he's been awful this season. But when you're not starting Ahmad, when Mishu's not in the middle of that park, I mean, he wouldn't be in the middle of the park, I think, if if Corey Evans was fit. When you look at the decimated back line, yeah, I think that was our best performance all season.
Yeah, it was gutsy. And I saw that Gooch won man of the match, and he was just all over the place. He was just like a fly to poop. You know, like he was just, they couldn't shake him. He was great.
So here's my bugbear about Gooch, and it's not about the player himself, it's about the fans' reaction to him. There's a kid who's been with us since we were in the Premier League. Came down and was a bit part player in the Championship the first time around, and really came into his game in League One. Has been played at left back, right back, central midfield, right wing, left wing. Like he is the attacking version of Luke O'Nane's defensive versatility, but he doesn't get half of the recognition that O'Nane gets for doing what O'Nane does.
Mhm.
And I've got to be honest, it bugs the shit out of me.
Also, I'm partial because he's American, and so but I think he doesn't have that personality, right? Luke has that personality where he just kisses babies and shakes hands.
Yeah.
It's and there's a lot to that. Gooch is just kind of a silent professional. He just and I think sometimes because he came into his own in League One, I think people forget like this is a kid who has Premier League minutes, like in a different position than he often plays now. Because like you said, he's a square, he's a circle, he's a star, and you can put him in any peg or any hole. He can just do whatever you do.
I think the thing I like about him most, and I saw this on a number of occasions last night, is he has that, I don't want to say Mackem mentality, because it kind of sounds condescending, but it's that never say die mentality. Yeah, look, he's not going to be brilliant every single game. None of the players on that squad are. He's going to have some subpar performances. His crossing is not great. But when you look at commitment to the cause, when you look at a player who, look, he might lose the ball in the final third, but you know what? He's the guy who's running back and making that sliding tackle in our first third and clearing up his own mess. When you look at Pritchard and Roberts, when you look at Clark and Ahmad, they're the ones who are staying down after they've lost the ball and they're bitching and moaning to the referee. Gucci just gets up, he'll yell abuse at the referees, he's running back, but that never say die attitude from Gucci is what I think for me endears me to him. And it was epitomized yesterday. I think it was in the second half. Burnley had a really good attack down the right-hand side, or their right-hand side, our left, because obviously Gucci was playing at left back yesterday. The ball got played past him, and the Burnley player had 5 yards on him. Like he was off, and I was like, "Oh, this is dangerous." But Gooch got back, was able to cut down the angle, sliding tackle, took the ball out of play, and took what could have been a very difficult set of defending tasks for us into a much easier corner to defend. And I think if that had been even Sirkin or LS, I think they would have given up as a lost cause and we'd have been in a bit more danger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's a fighter that way. His finesse. Yeah, I don't want to pigeonhole these guys because like sometimes we've got these Ferraris and guys like Clark and Roberts where they can just do beautiful things with the ball, and then I think O'Nane and Gooch get pigeonholed as like just tough. It's like no, they're footballers. They have skill too, but they also are tough. So I guess what I'm getting at is I hate in sports where you have some guys who just have all the skill and no heart, and then you have guys who have all heart and no skill. And I think those two have more skill than they're credit for, but they all also are all hard.
Look, I mean, history as a Sunderland fan, we've always really kind of endeared ourselves to those players. Kevin Ball was a fantastic player. He was a lot more skillful than he was given credit for, but he was hard as nails. You look at someone like Lee Cattermole, again, tough player in the center of the park, wasn't the most skillful, but the fans really took to him. You've got players like, I mean, David Bardsley, not the most skillful of right backs, but gave his all to the cause. And yeah, he got some stick from certain sections of the fans, but you're always going to find those idiot fans who just dislike a player for no apparent reason. I'll hold my hands up and say that Corey Evans, I didn't like him at all, but I've come round. So yeah, so I mean, I think Mowbray said it best last night is that we've got a lot of skillful players in that team, but you need a couple of real fighters, and O'Neill and Gooch are really those that aggressive kind of heart of the team, that never say die heart. And I think that's why, despite the fact that we only had 30% of the ball yesterday, we had the bulk of the game in our half. We still looked dangerous, and we never really looked like losing. I think that was I think their best chance. They had two really good chances in the whole game. Ashley Barnes put one over when I think it probably was a little bit easier to score. I think he was just trying to be too clever with it. And then you had the one that Gooch charged down and went over the bar.
Yeah, there was that one time it was late in the first half where that was a near run thing. Like they were right there, they put a ball in. It wasn't cleared terribly well, and then I forget. I think it was Neil or someone finally kicked it out of the box. That was for me rewatching was the only time I was like, oh wow, that was seeing it on a rewatch. It looked a lot closer than I remember just listening. But besides that, you're right. It was like, but it wasn't one of those boring games. You know, sometimes nil-nils can be real slogs. If there was movement, there was excitement, but there was never a time where you felt like it's just a matter of time.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
don't
it was
think
like, no.
I agree with you. I don't think there was a point yesterday watching that game where I was nervous as I have been in other games. Like when we played, was it Sheffield United? Sheffield United looked dangerous every time they went forward. And it took a lot for us to repel a lot of those attacks. But with Burnley yesterday, I mean, they were at home. I mean, yeah, okay, look, they were coming off a 6-0 hammering off Manchester City. They'd had players away for international duty, so maybe it was a good time to catch them. But they didn't look like they could. They didn't look like a team who'd scored 70 plus goals already this season.
And plus, I mean, that was a good time to catch us, right? I mean, we did have Diallo for the first half. Micheal, you know, they had just come from what 4 time zones away playing international duty. We've got, gosh, how many people on injured list? I mean, so like we are also hampered. So, like we said earlier, the fact that we put up in that performance, it was, I was proud. That was a young team out there.
Look, I mean, look, we've got the youngest team in the division this season. The fact that 09 turns 29 today, happy birthday, Luke. Is well, it's not today because technically it's going to be Monday when this comes out. So I hope you had a good birthday, Luke. So yes, I mean the fact that he bumps us up a whole kind of year, like it's ridiculous how young this team is. But it's also like I'm so excited about what this team's potential could be. My only hope is that we don't start to get cherry picked this close season. I think players like Roberts and Clark, yeah, like Ahmad's probably going to go back to Man United. Does it pay for Man United to give him a toast for a second season and really push that development? Maybe, because he's not getting in their first team. Or do they want to send him out to somewhere on the continent where he's going to get a higher level of game and maybe European games as well? That's my big concern from a going forward perspective. But this team has got so much potential. I mean, look at Hume, Ballard, Alisi, Sirkin. You got Micheal, you got Daniel, you've got Ekwa, you've got Bar, you've got Lahaji. I mean, the list goes on. Players who are late teens, early 20s, and just have so much development ahead of them. And Mowbray seems to know what he's doing with that development. And again, I'll hold my hands up and say I wasn't Mowbray's biggest fan when the appointment was announced. I think I'd rather have had a pint of milk managing us or a packet of crisps, but I'm happy to be proven wrong there as well.
Yeah, I think you know, you're not going to hit on every pick, and maybe Galhart is showing that you're not going to hit on every pick. But my goodness, if I have to think of one dud of these young guys coming up and outside of Gelhardt, I can't. It's like this recruitment team is picking these guys, and you know, if the model is that we'll sell them high, and it will continue to require hitting on 90% of your picks. But so far, this will be my third season of following the team. I haven't seen too many bad picks of that sort.
I wish I could say that. I'm 47 years old. I went to my first game was when I was 2.5. So 45 years of supporting this team. I've seen my fair share of duds. Expensive, cheap, free, loans. Like I've seen crap players of every caliber.
But not from the regime. I guess that's my point. Like, you know, as a Twins fan, we haven't won a playoff game since October 2nd, 2004. And we've made a lot of playoffs. And, you know, every time the Twins make the playoffs, there's this gray cloud. And it's like, look, what does this team have to do with any of those past teams that have lost? Nothing.
Did you say you haven't won a playoff game or you haven't won a playoff series?
Game. We have lost 18 straight playoff games.
Wow.
Twins. Yeah. And you know,
Sunderland fans, it's not that bad.
What'd you say?
It's like I'm just saying to Sunderland fans, it's not that bad. Like it could be worse.
It could be worse. And you know, but what if the Twins make the playoffs? What does this 2023 team have to do with the 2010, the 2006? Nothing. It's a new team, and that's how I feel like with this new regime. It's a new regime who seem to have a philosophy that is built by analytics and built by other clubs like Brighton doing the same thing. So my only concern is it's kind of like metrics in baseball is if we're late to that game. Because I don't think so you have those teams that can just buy whomever they want. Okay, whatever, we're not them. And then you have teams like us who might be trying this new age approach, but how many teams can do that realistically before it becomes what all the teams who can't just buy players do? So I'm hoping we're not late to that game. I'm hoping we can build it up and get something going before a lot of other clubs catch on. But I guess that that supposes a billionaire owner, and I don't think they're just floating out there. So
yeah, we'll with a couple of points I got to address there. We'll start off with the kind of Moneyball analytics way of looking at it, and I don't think there are many clubs doing it. I think Brentford are probably the best at doing it right now. Brighton definitely have a way of going about things. And look, if it means that we sell Equa in 2 seasons for 60 million, I'm okay with that. We bring somebody in. If we have to sell Stewart for 20 million after the end of next season, I'm okay with that. The natural progression of the team is what's important. Now you look at the 2 teams I mentioned, Brighton and Brentford. I'm sure every single Sunderland fan out there would happily swap positions with them to have a squad at that level. Are you shivering, dude?
No, I'm moving.
It looked. I thought, shit, it must be cold.
Well, it's like I'm rubbing my somewhat nascent beard here.
Okay, so I think if you look at Brentford and Brighton, they're what 7th and 10th in the Premier League. They're having fantastic seasons again this year. I think every Sunderland fan out there would give up their granny for that kind of well-run, profitable club. Yeah, okay. So you don't have a Kevin Ball at the club who's there for 12 seasons, but you might have 4 players in that period who are every bit as good and make you 200 million over that same time period from the selling. So I'm cool with that kind of model. It'd be nice to see Sunderland making profits on players. I've seen us lose money on far too many. But the other thing, you were talking about so few poor signings, and you mentioned Gelhardt this season as maybe one. I'm going to disagree. If you watch him, and then I mean, almost to the point where you're not really taking note of the rest of the game. So for last week's podcast was the 2 weeks ago, it was the game against Luton. And I watched the match in real time. and then I watched it back, but I was watching it back specifically to keep an eye on Gelhardt's movement.
Mm.
And if you watch him, he makes some really good. He's got really good movement off the ball. When we're pushing forward, he's making the right moves into the box. He's opening up himself out into space. The problem he's got is that the wingers are not finding him. Now, whether that's confidence from the wingers to be able to feel as though he's the best option to feed the ball to, or whether it's just the fact that both Clark and Roberts and Ahmad like to cut in and shoot. We're not servicing him the way he needs to be serviced. It's like, we'll go back to your Ferrari. And I apologize to Ferrari for referring to Clark and Roberts as Ferraris. I think they're a little bit off that. Maybe they're a nice Ford Fiesta. But no, but in all seriousness, when you look at if you get a Ferrari and you're just putting regular gas into it, petrol for those in the UK, it's not going to run the same way it should. And so I think, obviously, we signed Gelhardt with a very specific role in mind. He was to play that number 10 role, that deeper lying forward who's going to play off of Stewart, make the runs off of Stewart, kind of like Phillips did for Niall Quinn. And that was going to be the strength. He was going to create trouble by being around the ball when it drops down in the box. And the day after he signs, Stewart gets sidelined for the season. So it's a tough one. When you look at his scrappiness when we're not in possession, I thought he was unlucky yesterday. At the first half, he's pressing early, and he pressed the defense in their own box. He was able to nick the ball off the defender, and it's just the fact that his momentum took him wide. He wasn't able to get his shot away. Otherwise, I think that might have been a different story. He's right there. I think maybe the next couple of games we'll see him score a couple of goals. I'm confident in that. I mean, we've got coming up the next couple of games. We have Hull City, Cardiff City, Birmingham, and Huddersfield. That should, in theory, be 12 points.
Yes.
Because those teams should not be beating us. They're all in the bottom half of the table. Huddersfield, Cardiff, and Hull are in serious trouble. Birmingham a little less so. But it's Birmingham at home. So from my perspective, they are games that we should win comfortably, even without Ross Stewart. I think they're games that players like Ahmad and Roberts and Clark are going to relish. And I think you'll see 2 or 3 goals at least in those 4 games from Gelhardt. I'll stick my neck out. In fact, I'll say it now. The charity bets series that we have, in addition to the correct score predictions, we'll chuck in on there, and we'll do it as an American parlay, and we'll do Gelhardt to score at any time, and I'll chuck $10 on a week.
Okay.
So that's how confident I am that he's going to score a couple of the next 4 games.
Okay. Yeah, these are things where my knowledge of the sport is still new. But what you're saying is, since I like American football a lot, guys like like a wide receiver like KJ Osborne for the Vikings would get some. He was supposed to break out this year, and he did towards the end. But some Vikings fans were disappointed because Cousins was kind of not throwing to him. But then when you look at the All-22, it was like that guy was running routes. He was getting defenders on him because he's so fast. But more importantly, he was blocking so well. And it was like, if all you look at are catches and touchdowns, he seems absent from the score sheet.
Mm-hmm.
But when you look at it, no, he's vital in those unglamorous roles that don't, get you paid.
I play a lot of fantasy football with the NFL, so for me, it's I watch a lot of quarterbacks, and for me, it was Derek Carr at the Vegas. He had Jacobs. Obviously, Jacobs is primarily a running back, but he was getting into space because he's a double threat player, and he's getting into space to receive. And he's in acres of space, and Jacobs is just not seeing him. And I think that's the problem Gelhardt's got. He's getting into the space, and he's just not getting the service he needs.
Just not the trust yet. And I think I think they build that trust, like to know he's going to be where I need him to be. I guess I don't know. I guess in football they call that English football vision, right? Have that vision and knowing, okay, he's going to be where I need him to be, even if he's not there right now. So I need to make that cross because I trust Joffrey's going to be where he's going to be.
But I think the biggest thing with Gelhardt for me is got nothing to do with him. It's the Sunderland fans, and they are like the vocal minority on Twitter are absolutely disgusting.
They're bonkers. They are bonkers.
Bonkers is a nice way to put it, but they're just mean. I mean, they're just. I want to really curse really badly, but I'm trying not to because I got tagged on my Google thing for not tagging cursing when Sean was on. But yeah, I mean, look, they were in training. Clark put in a peach of a cross, and he scored a peach of a volley. It was a scissor kick, I think it was. And it was a great goal. And the tone of abuse that tweet got was absolutely uncalled for. And I'm happy to criticize players when they're playing poorly. I'm happy to criticize players when they aren't putting in a shift. And I'm happy to criticize players just because they're Corey Evans. Or I was. But when you see this kid trying, when you see this kid making the moves and not getting the service, and you see the potential he has when they're playing training games, to just throw vitriol and hate at the kid. And again, it's not his fault Stewart got injured. It's not his fault he's not playing the role he was brought in to play. But he's getting on with it. He's doing, and again, you look at his effort, and like Gucci, like there's no lack of effort in his game. He just needs that ball to bounce for him. He just needs that. If it comes off his arse and deflects in the back of the goal, then great. He scored. He can move on. He can go on. But I think Sunderland fans need to take a long, hard look at themselves, and realize the shit you're giving to a young kid, which is not of his making. And I think for me, that is the worst side of Sunderland fans. And it's a lot of these younger Sunderland fans who want to go online and give the shit and give the hate. They really do make us look like Newcastle United fans at times. Newcastle fans historically, I mean, I know you said 3 years, so historically Newcastle fans have been the ones to spit the dummy out and really go off on their team and really embarrass themselves online. But tell you what, I look at some of these tweets from people and I'm like, you need to have a word with yourself, mate. You really do.
Yeah, I am so quick, rather so slow to criticize my own players. You've got to really, like more or less request a trade publicly, because I'm like, you're playing for my team. And, like, I'm not like, if they miss an obvious shot or if they give away a ball, it's like, come on, what are you doing? You're a professional. But to like go on socials and just rail them, I'm like, guy, they care more than we do. They're battling with their 10 brothers out there. They're the ones.
That far. I mean, look, at the end of the day, as much as I love Sunderland, and look, 45 years of supporting the rotten buggers. I've seen good players, I've seen bad players. But in my heart, I know for them, yeah, look, they may love football, but it's their job. So the idea of players and sportsmen in general going out and battling with their brothers is a media trope that I don't think really exists. Yeah, look, they talk about going in a battle. And I'm like, I think that's offensive to members of the military who actually have gone into battle. So from my perspective, it's like, look, you're getting paid very handsomely, even at this level, even with our pay structure in place, you're still getting paid way more than the local fan who's coming to see you. your professional pride should dictate that you put out your best performance, even if your best performance isn't that good, because you just like anyone who's played sport, anyone who goes out and does something that takes practice realizes like I know that I can go out and play golf and I can shoot 80, but I also know I can shoot 95. Now it doesn't mean that I'm trying any less when I'm shooting 95. It just means sometimes just my timing's not there and I'm just not with it that day. So I understand that you can have off days. I understand you can have a couple of them in a row. But for me, it's all about how you mentally try to overcome that. And that's where we come back to Lyndon Gooch. Look, he might have 2 or 3 average games where his crossing is not so great. He's dribbling down dead end alleys and he's losing the ball. But you always see him come back. You always see him track back. And you always see him try to get that tackle in. Yeah, he might miss tackles at times. And yeah, his positional sense from a right back may not be great, but effort is something that's never missing from him, even if the skill and the end product sometimes is.
So I got a question, what you just said, because I think I do disagree. I think they care at the very least because, yes, they're getting paid now, but they're not guaranteed future contracts. So they're always going to try their hardest and they're going to fight for the guys on that field on most given days. Do you think maybe that's one reason Sunderland fans have historically liked these perceived less skilled players, but have a lot of heart because they end up staying around because no one else wants them? You know what I'm saying? Because they seem like they actually are fighting for the shirt, where others seem to be like journeymen 3 years because they're just waiting for the next big paycheck at a more lucrative club.
So I think there's something to be said for that. I think Sunderland of all, like, we're a working class town. Like you're in the middle of Motor City.
Yeah.
You should have said you were not far from Detroit. So that working class mentality. If you look at American football teams like Detroit and Pittsburgh, which are very industrial kind of areas, traditionally that's what Sunderland was. We had shipbuilding, we had coal mines, and everything was like football for a lot of those people was an escape from those very labor intensive jobs. So we tended to like that kind of steelier mentality as far as the game is played, which is why players who are absolute gash, like awful players, have managed to find a way into the heart of Sunderland fans throughout history. John Kay, I love John Kay. He played for us in the 80s and 90s. It might have been the 90s more than the 80s. When you look back at his skill set, he wasn't the most skillful right back, but I mean, he's called the red and white tractor for a reason. I mean, he was industrial at times, but he left it all out there. And I remember his last, I think it was his last game for Sunderland. He broke his leg, I think, for the second time. As he's being stretchered off, he sits up and he's rowing the stretcher off the pitch. To players like Nyman Nosworthy, I mean, look, Nos was crap. He really was awful. But he tried and he gave his all. And the fans appreciated that. We really don't have, in the last couple of years, that awful player that's really kind of warmed the cockles of your heart type of thing. But yeah, I mean, I think Sunderland fan, like a lot of English fans, they like someone doesn't have to have the skills of Messi, but you've got to have the heart and you've got to put it all out there. I think that's why at times, like when you look at Hume loves to put a tackle in, and he puts some fantastic tackles in, and you hear the cheer from those tackles is sometimes nearly as raucous when the ball and the game's getting going, can nearly be as raucous as like a near miss. So it's like I think that the Sunderland fans do tend to like a bit more of a battler. We're not used to those silky players like a Sessegnon or like an Ahmad. Well, we're used to a lot more basic, and if that's the change that Sunderland are making with the identity that Dreyfus wants to bring into his club, then I'm all for it.
Yeah,
I'd much rather cheer players because they're brilliant than because they try.
Yeah, and that's at the end of the day, it's about wins, right? And yeah, it's about wins, and I don't think we'll care how we get to the Premier League and stay as long as we get there and stay. And so yeah, I I'm all about loyalty, and I very much appreciate seeing the same players putting on a shirt year after year. And it stinks when time catches up and you have to stay go and you have to make a business decision. And it especially stinks when the player isn't necessarily prepared for that business decision. But at the end of the day, it's like Jerry Seinfeld said, we root for laundry, and who's ever wearing our laundry. That's truly what we care about.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't think any player leaves a club and it comes as a shock to them.
Yeah.
I think sometimes you might have an offer that comes in for a player, but the player knows that the offer's coming in these days. Most clubs will sound out an agent about a potential move before they start to chase down. So if somebody were to come in, say, for Dan Neil, I mean, first of all, the press are going to know about it because nobody can keep a secret outside of Sunderland, it seems. And so a lot of that transfer work is done in the press these days. And then the player's agent's going to get a call and say, "Hey, look, how do you think Dan would react if, say, Burnley came in for him? Is Burnley somewhere you think he would want to go?" I'm like, okay, so now they've had that conversation, and once Dan goes, "You know what, I love it here at Sunderland, but yeah, I'd be interested in having a conversation." Now the club's got to be approached, and by the time the player finds out there's an offer on the table, he already knows it's coming in. He's already preparing for that next move potentially, or that discussion at least. So I think that as far as players are concerned, they know a lot more than they ever did. But again, I don't see a problem with that. I'm one of those people, because I've had my own business, I think, because I understand that loyalty is temporary everywhere. That you've got a situation where, as a player, you've got a finite amount of time where you can play and make your money before you have to go on and get a real job. So, yeah, I may love my time at Sunderland, but if Man City come in for me and they want to offer me 10 times what I'm earning right now to do exactly the same job, but with better players around me, yeah, look, as much as I love Sunderland, I'm going to make that move. It's good for my career progression, and it puts money in the bank that I may not have to go and work at Asda for 5-6 years more. At the same time, I think when you look at clubs, they understand the finite time, so they know when it's the time to crack cash in. They know when it's time to cut someone loose. And again, that's got to be the hardest part for a football club, when you've got a player that maybe you like that's just not cutting the mustard, when you've got to let them go. Sorry, we don't want you back next year. You're free to find a new team, or look, you just don't fit into the way that I want this team to play. I think it's best if you find yourself another club. So I like players who will fight and will show professional pride in the games they play. But I don't necessarily think that a player should want to stay with a club forever unless he's been successful with that club.
Yeah, so I wonder, there's a few times in my history I can think of Brad Radke and Kirby Puckett, who took hometown discounts to stay with the Twins. Jay Wright was offered literally twice as much and would have been made the highest paid NCAA basketball coach to move from Villanova to UCLA. And he denied it and said, "You don't mess with Happy. I have a good thing here in Villanova." And he's from the area. He's from Philadelphia. So there are a few examples where you were, now granted, he won 2 national championships at Villanova, and Puckett won 2 World Series. So it's like they were winning teams, right?
Let me just interrupt you there. Winning national championships is like when you win an FA Cup. I think that was, as Sunderland fans, it's 50 years since we've won anything other than the Papa John's or a discounted league trophy. So winning actual national championships, Premier League, FA Cup, the big cups, rather than the stuff that we win.
And so I guess as I'm processing this out loud, like, they took the hometown discount because they were on a winning team in a winning culture. They weren't playing for bottom table teams. They were like, "No, but we really love the nightlife." Like, they were making good money on winning teams. So I guess that's a difference too. Speaking of that, like, I remember when I first became a supporter, there was some talk about how difficult it is to recruit to Sunderland because of its location, as opposed to some of these London clubs. What do you think about that? Because I went to Sunderland, actually. I visited the UK for 2 weeks this past summer, and my wife and I made a trip, and because of Rebecca and Justin, they allowed us. Justin actually picked us up from the train station. But I thought the city was cool. I enjoyed it, but I've just heard that it's so far away. It doesn't really have. It's not hopping, and so that it's kind of hard to attract young footballers.
So this is where I get into a lot of trouble, because as someone who left Sunderland, I left because it didn't have enough for me.
Mm.
And I left and I moved to London, and then obviously I moved to the US. I love going back. I love visiting. For me, I'm trying not to lose every single Sunderland fan that ever watched this right now. Look, it's a great city, and it has the most friendly people I've ever met.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the reasons I like Virginia Beach, where I am right now, because with the exception of we've got nice weather here year round nearly, the people here are so friendly. I forgot what it was like having lived in London and the New York area for 25 years. I forgot what it was like to live in a friendly area.
Yeah.
And so it's like people, when you're going into stores, they ask you how you're doing, but they actually care about how you're doing. People will say hi as they pass you on the street as you're walking around your neighborhood. It's like
Yeah.
it's a different quality of people, and that's what I love about Sunderland. It's got some stunning coastline. It's a beautiful city. I really love going home, but it doesn't have enough for me to want to keep me there year long.
Yeah.
And again, it's because it is a working class area. It's a victim of a lack of investment from the national government. So a lot of the things that you might see in Newcastle, you might get in Manchester or Leeds. We just never got access to in Sunderland. We had to fight to get the metro into Sunderland, despite the fact that the Tyne-and-Wear transport executive, which we'd paid tax money into for years, had made it solely a Newcastle type of thing. So it's through no fault of its own. It's not the most glamorous of cities. It's, as I say, it's a very working class city, which is what makes those people and the people that I'm family and friends back home a salt of the earth kind of people. But I think if you're looking for a glamour club, I just don't think Sunderland's going to be the club you go to. I think we have a phenomenal setup. I think we have amazing stadium. We have a great academy and training facilities. You've got everything from a professional perspective to make you want to play for the club. I mean, the fans, if you listen to those fans last night, if you were blind just listening into the match, you would think we were the home team. I mean, it was outstanding. Obviously, you listened to just commentary, so you couldn't see that we were at Turf Moor and not at Stadium of Light. The fans are amazing.
Yeah, you can
for the most part, they're such knowledgeable fans as well. It's not it's not like you when you go to Manchester United and you have a whole lot of tourist fans. Like we've got 46,000 hardcore knowledgeable fans. When you think about, I'm going to go on a football vacation, where should I go? There's very few people are going to put Sunderland at the top of the list. It's going to be your Liverpools, your Arsenals, your Chelseas, your Man United. And look, I have no problem with that, but I love being from Sunderland. I'm proud of the fact that I'm from Sunderland. But I also understand the limitations that the city has, which are not caused by the people, it's caused by government's continued failure to invest in the city. With the right investment, that city would be amazing.
Yeah, it was beautiful. The whole region. My wife and I spent 3 days in Hadrian's Wall, Sunderland, and Durham. And by far, that was our favorite part of England. We went to York. York was nice, and we went to London. And London was nice, but we loved the north and the northeast. And not just the people. It's stupid, beautiful land. I mean, I was like, oh my word, this is gorgeous country.
My son described it. We went home for my brother's wedding. I think it was about 5, maybe 6 years ago when my son was younger. So he would have been 12, maybe. And he described it as green with a lot of nothing. And that was basically the drive from Edinburgh Airport down to Sunderland. And for me, it's like, it's just stunning to look at. The rolling hills, the coastline, Like, I'm almost getting homesick thinking about it.
Is Virgin
The fact that the club are touring the US for International Fans Day, I canceled my channel. Sorry, the fact the club are touring in San Antonio and in Albuquerque this summer, I canceled my trip back home in next week to go on the tour instead of going to the International Fans Day, which makes me a little bit sad because now I don't get to hang out with my brother. I don't get to see my mom and dad. But I had to pick one or the other with buying a house this year. And I haven't been to New Mexico before. And I wanted to be able to tick off all 50 states before I die.
Yeah, New Mexico is cool. It's having been to numerous deserts in my life. New Mexico is a unique desert. It's pretty. It's pretty desert. It's not the Middle East.
Well, the redhead in me doesn't really fancy the desert. Obviously, I'm not the most natural of tanners, but I'm looking forward to meeting up with some really good Sunderland supporters that I've met in my time out here. I know that Ant who's coming on for, I think Ant's coming on for the Watford game. He's been on the podcast before. He's traveling down from Wyoming for the first 2 games of the tour. Really looking forward to getting together with Sunderland fans and shocking a couple of cities. I know when we were in Toronto a couple of years, we had a great turnout. We've done Charleston, Wilmington. Wasn't so much on the West Coast tour, but we turn out in numbers, and the club seems to be putting together a reasonably priced package for UK-based fans to come out. So it should be a good tour.
Yeah, that's one thing. I've got 2 questions. Well, one comment, one question for him. One thing I've really been impressed. It's really fascinating to me as a North American, as an American, the United States citizen, to see how clubs and fans or supporters interact. It's a way that is completely removed from the American sports scene. Like completely removed. And it's the history and where they've come up, and I've been fascinated by it. I think it's really cool. So that was just a comment. Now to my question. I've been listening. So I've got, there's like the 3, I think, main audio podcasts: Wiseman Say, What the Fuck, and Broker Report. And I've been thinking about this because I usually, if the team wins, first off, I like What the Fuck. I just like Graham. I think he's hilarious. I like his accent. And I like the guys he usually has on. When we win, I like Wiseman Say, because when we lose, I think they're insufferable. They are so negative. And Roper Report is just kind of even keeled. So which one is your favorite? Because like last night, the Wiseman Say after, they had an after podcast. It was like negative about how like great game, great point, but what's the point? We're not going anywhere. And I was like, oh my word, you guys just watched a fantastic 90 minutes of football, and you're going to give me an 18-minute podcast about how disappointed you are in the season. So they get a little dour for me. Which do you prefer?
So I think Roker Report is the one I listen to most. I have to admit that I'm terrible at listening to podcasts. Normally I put them on in the car. So I catch bits and pieces of them. So yeah, Roker Report's the one I've listened to the most. But I quite often I'm at odds with Roker Report, especially when it comes to their match ratings. So yeah, I think Roker Report's the one. I have listened to What the Fuck. And again, I like there's not a bad one out there. I mean, anytime a fan spends the time to create content for other fans, it's good, even if some of it's a little bit drier and some of it's just ridiculously bullshit. So I'm never gonna criticize. I mean, look, I don't get that many listeners to this one. It's a newer pod. I mean, we're trying to get there, but it's designed for fans in the US, and there's not that many Sunderland fans out here. As far as 40, 50,000 in Sunderland listening to Roker Report and things like that. So I know my role, I know my lane. And look, if I can, the reason I do this, obviously, I think we started this during the end of COVID, was because I got fed up of not having someone to talk to about the match after the match.
Mm.
And I love doing this. I'll do this as long as I can find people willing to come on. And if I don't get hundreds and thousands and millions of subscribers and no corporate entity wants to sponsor the pod, then so be it.
Mhm.
But listen, it's we've had you on for nearly an hour now. I know that you've got girls running around the house. So I will let you go. We do have our traditional charity bet. Obviously, everything's going towards the Bradley Lowry Foundation for the second half of the season. We have Hull City coming up on Good Friday. That's a home game. Hull are in terrible form and are in serious danger of relegation, I think. I have to double check the table, actually. Actually, no, Hull are doing okay. Hull are 15th in the table. They've got nothing to play for. It doesn't look as though they're going to be in relegation danger. What do you think the score is going to be?
I'm going to say 2-0. I think we'll defend well. If we can defend like we did yesterday, we'll have another clean sheet. And I guess my reach pick, as I was watching this one, a Danny Bart header from a set piece. I'm going to call a set piece point or goal, and it's going to
That's
be Danny.
mighty brave. So what I will do is I will chuck on an extra fiver for Danny Bart to score at any time. Like I said, I was going to put on the extra fiver for Gelhardt to score as well. I think we'll win 2-1. And I think we'll win the next 4 games, if I'm honest. So that's how we're looking for that.
Okay.
All right. Well, Michael. Thank you very much for coming on today. Hopefully it warms up in Michigan. I don't know how cool it is right now. I think you said 50s, which is a bit chilly. It's 70 here in Virginia Beach. Guys, that's all we have time for this week. We do have already scheduled Justin Warner's coming on for the Good Friday game. There won't be one after the Cardiff game. It's Easter Monday. It's work day here in the US, so we don't have time off like you have in the UK. Enjoy your 4-day weekends, and we'll be back during the weekend. Guys, from everybody, from both of us here at Our Stars and Stripes and Maple Syrup, thank you very much for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.